The streets of Paris, long a symbol of revolution and resilience, are once again at the heart of a national drama. The city's grand boulevards, which have witnessed centuries of upheaval, now echo with the voices of a new generation demanding change. Across the capital, and in cities throughout France, protesters fill the avenues, waving banners and lighting flares, their anger and frustration impossible to ignore. This time, the unrest is fueled by a deep economic and political crisis threatening the very foundations of the Fifth Republic. Tensions between citizens and authorities are at a breaking point, with nightly clashes and a sense of uncertainty hanging in the air. France faces a staggering national debt, political gridlock, and a social contract that feels unsustainable. The headlines speak of mounting deficits and a government struggling to find solutions. Years of overspending and delayed reforms have led to this moment. Now, the bill has come due. Ordinary citizens feel the squeeze as costs rise and public services falter, fueling a sense of injustice. President Macron's government is weakened, parliament is deadlocked, and international markets are watching anxiously. The leadership appears paralyzed, unable to unite the country or reassure investors. Everyday life is marked by uncertainty. From teachers to healthcare workers, people across professions are taking to the streets, demanding fair wages and better conditions, while families worry about their future. The social fabric is fraying, with citizens frustrated by rising inequality and a government seen as out of touch. Many feel abandoned by leaders who seem distant from the struggles of ordinary people. From the yellow vests to mass strikes, the French have shown fierce resistance to austerity, making reform nearly impossible. The spirit of protest is alive, but so too is the fear of what comes next. As instability grows, France's crisis is spilling into the European Union, threatening the stability of the entire Eurozone. European leaders are watching closely, aware that France's turmoil could have far-reaching consequences. What happens next in France is more than a domestic drama. It's a test for the future of Europe itself. The world is watching as the fate of a nation, and perhaps a continent, hangs in the balance. To grasp France's predicament, look at the numbers. National debt has soared to 3.35 trillion euros, nearly 120% of GDP. This is a dramatic rise from under 70% before 2008, showing a country living far beyond its means. Germany, by contrast, keeps its debt below 70% of GDP, highlighting France's lack of fiscal discipline. Investors now demand higher interest rates from France than even Greece, with 10-year bonds at 3.5%. In 2025, France will spend 66 billion euros just on interest, more than its entire education or military budget. These payments are set to become the government's largest expense, crowding out essential services. Fitch Ratings recently downgraded France's credit, making borrowing even more expensive. The debt trap is tightening, and the world is taking notice. France hasn't balanced its budget in over 50 years. Deficit spending is now a permanent feature. Every year, the government borrows to cover the gap, adding to the mountain of debt. Recent deficits, 5.8% in 2024, 5.4% projected for 2025, far exceed the EU's 3% limit. Even outside of crises, France can't return to fiscal sustainability. Attempts at austerity are met with mass protests, making reform politically toxic. Leaders avoid tough choices, passing the problem to the next administration. Now, the government is trapped between public demands for services and creditors' calls for responsibility. Decades of living on credit have left France with few options and a deeply uncertain future. At the heart of France's debt crisis lies its costly and deeply entrenched pension system, which now consumes a staggering quarter of all public spending, amounting to 420 billion euros every year. This immense financial burden is a central reason why France's national debt continues to spiral, putting increasing pressure on the government's ability to fund other essential services. The pay-as-you-go model, where today's workers fund the pensions of current retirees, was once a sustainable solution. Back in the 1960s, France had a booming workforce and a relatively small retired population, making the system seem almost foolproof. But over the decades, the country's demographics have shifted dramatically. Today, the situation is starkly different. Now, just 100 workers support 36 retirees, double the ratio from 1960. This means fewer people are paying into the system, while more are drawing benefits. making the entire structure increasingly unsustainable and putting future generations at risk. In fact, half of France's most recent trillion euros in new debt has gone directly to funding pensions, highlighting just how much the system weighs on the nation's finances. French retirees are among the most well-off in the world, often receiving 70 to 80% of their career earnings. Uniquely, the average income of retirees in France actually exceeds that of the working-age population, a rare phenomenon in developed countries. When President Macron tried to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64, it sparked massive protests and nationwide strikes. Yet, even after the reform, France's retirement age remains among the lowest in Europe and the developed world. The pension system's generosity is fiercely protected by both politicians and the public. Any attempt to change it is met with strong opposition, making meaningful reform nearly impossible, even as the system threatens to bankrupt the state. Every effort at reform faces fierce resistance, trapping France in a seemingly endless cycle of debt and political gridlock. The country's leaders are left with few options as the financial pressure mounts. The pension crisis is a ticking time bomb at the very core of the nation's finances, threatening not just the future of retirees, but the stability of France itself. France's economic crisis is inseparable from its political paralysis. After a crushing defeat in the 2024 European elections, Macron's party lost its majority, and the parliament became hopelessly fragmented. Prime ministers have come and gone, unable to govern or pass budgets. The government resorted to Article 49.3, forcing through a deeply unpopular budget with spending cuts and tax hikes. Each move deepened public anger and eroded trust, while no confidence votes toppled leaders one after another. Macron remains in office but is powerless, presiding over a government in constant crisis. With no consensus for reform, France drifts toward fiscal disaster. The political system is locked in endless struggle, unable to address the nation's urgent challenges. Instability at the top makes economic recovery nearly impossible. France is stuck, adrift, divided, and running out of time. France's deficits and debt have triggered a showdown with the European Union. The EU's fiscal rules, 3% deficit, 60% debt, are being flagrantly violated by France. Brussels has launched an excessive deficit procedure, threatening penalties that would shake the Eurozone. The EU can't ignore France's rule-breaking without undermining its own credibility, but a bailout would be politically explosive. France's crisis is now a European crisis, with the euro's stability at stake. Populist parties in France openly defy EU rules, promising even more spending and challenging Brussels' authority. Macron's government is caught between EU demands for austerity and voters' demands for more benefits. The standoff has become a central battleground in French politics. The outcome will shape both France's future and the fate of the Eurozone. France's government is massive, spending 57% of GDP, one of the highest rates in the world. To fund this, taxes are sky high. Nearly half of labor costs go to the state, plus a 20% VAT and a 25% corporate tax. Even with these taxes, the government still runs large deficits every year. The gap between public expectations and what the economy can support is widening. High taxes discourage investment and hiring, slowing growth and making the debt harder to manage. Businesses may flee to countries with lower taxes, while small firms struggle to expand. France needs growth to escape its debt trap, but its own tax burden is holding it back. The state's size is both its strength and its Achilles heel. France's political factions are locked in a fierce contest, each offering starkly different solutions to the nation's deepening crisis. The stakes are high, and the future of the country hangs in the balance as parties battle not just for power, but for the very soul of France. On the left, the New Popular Front champions a bold vision, expanding the state's role in daily life, lowering the retirement age, and raising 150 billion euros in new taxes to fund social programs. Their supporters argue that only sweeping reforms can protect workers and address inequality, drawing energy from mass rallies and union support. Meanwhile, the far-right National Rally offers a sharply contrasting path. They promise to cut the deficit without slashing cherished social programs, instead targeting immigration and foreign aid for reductions. Their message of national sovereignty and security resonates with voters anxious about France's changing identity and economic future. Yet, economists warn that both plans are fraught with risk. The left's ambitious spending could stall growth and deepen debt, while the right's proposals may fall short of closing budget gaps. Many experts fear that neither side is confronting the full scale of France's fiscal challenges. In the middle, President Macron's centrist bloc, once the engine of reform, now finds itself weakened and sidelined. Their push for moderate, pragmatic changes has lost momentum, leaving them unable to steer the country through the current turmoil. The result is political gridlock. No single vision commands a majority, and the National Assembly is paralyzed. With parties refusing to compromise, the path forward is shrouded in uncertainty, and frustration grows on the streets. Financial markets are growing increasingly alarmed by the lack of credible solutions. Investors worry that prolonged instability could trigger a broader economic crisis, sending shockwaves through Europe and beyond. France now stands at a crossroads, its society deeply divided, and its political system unable to deliver answers. The sense of paralysis is palpable, with citizens and leaders alike searching for a way out of the impasse. The longer this stalemate drags on, the greater the risk that France will slide into a full-blown crisis, one that could reshape the nation's destiny for years to come. France stands at a crossroads, with no easy way out. The best hope, a unity government passing tough reforms, seems unlikely amid deep polarization. More likely is continued paralysis, weak governments, rising debt, and growing market fears. This could end in a sudden financial crisis, forcing brutal, chaotic cuts. Populist victories in 2027 could trigger clashes with the EU and shockwaves across Europe. The world is watching, as France's struggle mirrors challenges facing many Western democracies. Aging populations, slow growth, and political gridlock are testing the limits of the social contract. France's choices in the coming years will shape not just its own future, but Europe's as well. The fate of the Republic and the Eurozone hangs in the balance. The next chapter will be written by how France confronts its moment of reckoning.